How are you guys doing? Today is Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020. Here in this quarantine, I'm James Sims. And for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to take you through yesterday's college basketball matchups and through the first day of the fifth match day of Champions League. I'm going to let you know who advanced, and of course, I'm going to get into it in a second. Starting off with college basketball, just starting off with the ranked matchups. Starting with the top, fourth ranked Wisconsin was able to beat unranked Green Bay 82-42 behind Tyler Waugh's 11 points and 15 rebounds. Eighth ranked Michigan State was able to go to Cameron, a stadium I know very well, and they were able to beat sixth ranked Duke 75-69. Aaron Henry led the way with 14 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Also in the same State Farm Championship or Champions Classic tournament, or just in that for that event, seventh ranked Kansas was able to beat 20th ranked Kentucky 65-62 in a very close game. Jalen Wilson led the way for Kansas with 23 points and 10 rebounds. Ninth ranked Creighton was able to beat unranked Omaha 94-67 behind Marcus Zegarowski's 11 points and 11 assists. 12th ranked Villanova was able to beat unranked Hartford 87-53 behind Eric Dixon's 14 points and 10 rebounds. 15th ranked Virginia was able to beat St. Francis in Pennsylvania 76-51. Jay Huff was able to score 13 points to help lead Virginia to their second win of the season. They're 2-1. 17th ranked Texas is still undefeated after getting their third win against Indiana, beating them 66-44 in Indiana. Brock Cunningham led the way. He had 6 points. He had 11 rebounds. And last but not least, in the Camping Maui Invitational, same tournament, 14th ranked North Carolina was able to beat unranked Stanford to go 3-0, and they beat them 67-63 behind Day'Ron Sharp's 4 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. Big game for all those teams. Every ranked opponent except for Duke and Kentucky lost yesterday. So, of course, that's a big... I think a lot of college basketball fans were very happy with yesterday's results. And really quickly jumping out to what's been going on with soccer, especially the Champions League. 6 teams had already qualified up until this moment for Champions League and going in. These were groups A through D. Starting off with Group A with the early game, it looks as though FC Salzburg was able to beat Lokomotiv Moscow 3-1. Borussia was able to score 2 goals in the first half to go up 2-0. And then both teams to score a goal in the second half, and Salzburg would get the 3 points. Right now in that table, FC Salzburg is sitting third in that table with 1 point more than Lokomotiv Moscow. And as of right now, with one more match day to play, both teams are mathematically still in the hunt to get that second spot with Bayern Munich in Champions League. And speaking of Bayern Munich was able to beat Atletico Madrid, they were able to draw with Madrid 1-1 in Madrid. João Felix would score the only goal for Atletico Madrid, and Bayern Munich's elite center attacking mid, Thomas Müller, would score the penalty after getting subbed in. Big game for Bayern Munich considering they didn't have their starting goalie. They didn't have their starting striker. They didn't have a lot of their starters in. They subbed in a couple of them. They subbed in Gnabry late in the game. But the point is they didn't play at full strength, and they were still able to draw with Madrid. As of right now, Bayern Munich still sits at the top of the table. They have 4 wins and a draw so far in the table. They are undefeated. And Atletico Madrid right now is sitting with a win, 3 draws, and a loss. They have 6 points in the table. They are 2 points ahead of Salzburg and 1 point ahead of Lokomotiv Moscow. And looking as to how these games are going to go down on Wednesday, for the last game of the schedule, Bayern Munich will play Lokomotiv Moscow, and looking at how that's faring, Moscow needs a win, but I don't think they're going to win. They're going to beat Bayern Munich. And FC Salzburg will play Atletico Madrid, and if that game goes to a draw, Atletico Madrid advances. But if FC Salzburg beats Atletico Madrid, FC Salzburg will advance to the Champions League round of 16. I'm also continuing on to Group B. But the leaders at the top, Borussia Mönchengladbach, lost to Inter Milan yesterday. Romelu Lukaku would help by scoring 2 goals of his own in the second half. Plie would score both goals for Borussia Mönchengladbach, but it wouldn't be enough. With this win, Inter is still mathematically in it with Borussia Mönchengladbach. And looking at the other matchup, Shakhtar Donetsk faced off against Real Madrid. We were able to beat them in Ukraine They scored both goals in the second half, and they left Real Madrid scoreless. If we're looking at that table right now, Borussia Mönchengladbach is sitting at the very top with 8 points. Shakhtar Donetsk is second because they beat Real Madrid on the head-to-head. Both those teams have 7 points in the table, and Inter has 5. Inter is still mathematically not out of the count, but just looking out to the matchups for next Wednesday, and especially in this table, Internacional is going to play against Shakhtar Donetsk. I guess the winner of both those teams will get because Shakhtar is only 2 games ahead of Inter. A win for Inter would be pretty big, and then Real Madrid plays Borussia Mönchengladbach. If Mönchengladbach beats Real Madrid and Inter beats Shakhtar Donetsk, Inter is in. And both in every team going into next week needs a big win going forward. I'm going back to yesterday, looking into Group C for match day 5. Right now sitting at the top, Manchester City was able to tie with FC Porto 0-0, and they both continue to hold those top 2 spots in Group C. And with this draw, FC Porto now advances to Champions League, as Manchester City had already qualified. And then looking at to how Olympiacos and Marseille fared, Marseille was able to beat Olympiacos 2-1. Payet was able to score both goals as they spoiled Olympiacos' chance of making it in. And with this win, like I said, Manchester City, FC Porto are in. And even the game next week between those teams won't even matter. But just to let you know what's going on in that group, Manchester City will face off against Marseille, and then Olympiacos will face off against FC Porto for match day 6. Of course, even though these matchups don't matter in the long run. And last but not least, jumping out to Group D, Liverpool was able to clinch a spot. I think Liverpool already clinched a spot, but looking out to how they fared, Liverpool was able to beat Ajax 1-0. Jones scored the only goal in the 58th minute. And with this win, Liverpool will advance to Champions League as they now hold a 4-point lead over Atalanta and Ajax, because if Ajax won, Ajax would have overtaken Liverpool in the table. And then looking out to how the other game in this group fared, Atalanta was able to... They faced off against FC Midtjylland, and it ended up in a tie. Romero's 79th minute goal would end up tying and giving Atalanta the 1 point they need after Scholes' 13th minute goal of the day. And I think that was probably the best goal I've seen in a bit. I think that was definitely the goal of the day. But as of right now, looking at that table, Liverpool sits at the top with 12 points. They've clinched. If Atalanta had won that game, they probably would be in better position, if they won, they probably would have been in a lot better position. But looking at to how the final week is going to go, after Liverpool already clinched, you have 2 teams competing for that final spot. And it looks as though FC Midtjylland will play Liverpool, and the two remaining teams will face off, and those 2 teams being Ajax versus Atalanta at 12:55. That'll be one of the early games. Of course, like I just said, the winner of that will decide who gets to be in that spot with Liverpool. If Atalanta draws with Ajax, then Atalanta will be the team that advances. If Atalanta wins, they advance, but if they lose, then Ajax will be the team that advances to knockout rounds with Liverpool. So, of course, next week is a very big week for them. And just like I said, and there's going to be a lot of big Champions League today. But before I get into today's matches, I will just go into the groups again. Bayern Munich has clinched a spot in Group A. Atletico Madrid, FC Salzburg, and Lokomotiv Moscow. That spot is up for grabs. For Group B, Borussia Mönchengladbach, Shakhtar Donetsk, and Real Madrid are all competing for the 2 spots. No team has clinched it. Group C, Manchester City and FC Porto have both gone through. And then Liverpool was able to clinch for Group D. And so far, 8 teams have advanced to the round of 16, and yet there's more matchups to go between these 2 sides. And right now, looking into today's matchups for Champions League to decide what goes on, starting with Group E, Chelsea will face off against Sevilla at 3:00. Both teams have already clinched Champions League, so I imagine they're probably not going to play their starters. And I guess they're both going to try to face off to see who ends up with the best record in this table. But I wouldn't imagine they're going to try incredibly hard, in considering they're already going to clinch. And then the 2 teams in that group that have already been relegated to the Europa League, Krasnodar and Stade Rennes, are going to face off with each other as well. Even though that game really won't amount to anything because this group has already been determined. Going out to Group F, The team sitting at the top of the table currently, Borussia Dortmund, is going to face off against Lazio. That's going to be a big game between these two teams because they both sit at the top of Group F. Borussia Dortmund has 9 points currently, and Lazio has 8. If Borussia Dortmund ties Lazio, they still keep the number 1 spot. But if Lazio wins, Lazio overtakes Borussia Dortmund for the top spot in Group F. And I believe Lazio was the only team to beat Borussia Dortmund so far this year in Champions League play. So this will be very interesting. And then Club Brugge will take on Zenit St. Petersburg. And considering Borussia Dortmund will face off against Lazio, and if one of those teams loses and Club Brugge ends up beating them, Club Brugge will have a chance to move in closer with 1 week left. And then Zenit St. Petersburg is already out. They've already been delegated to the Europa League. Looking out to the Group G matchups for today, Barcelona is going to face off against Ferencváros, and then Juventus will face off against Dynamo Kiev. Looking out to that table, Ferencváros and Dynamo Kiev with 1 point. They're both mathematically eliminated. And then Barcelona, Juventus, they both already advanced. So I don't imagine, I can't see Barcelona and Juventus playing their big guns until probably next week when Ronaldo plays Messi. I think that's going to be a very big game, even though it really doesn't matter as to how that game goes. And last but not least, looking into Group H, the most competitive division in Champions League so far. The early game will be between RB Leipzig and Istanbul Başakşehir. And looking at how this matchup goes, it'll be a big win for RB Leipzig. If they win, they will most definitely get a leg up in the table, as Istanbul Başakşehir technically is not mathematically eliminated from the equation. And also Manchester United will face off against PSG. Man U is sitting at the top of the table with 9 points. A win here would more than help their chances of advancing to the next round. It wouldn't guarantee them the spot if RB Leipzig wins. And then PSG, a win here would tie them with Manchester United, and a win for Istanbul could probably knock RB Leipzig out of the competition. But I guess we'll see how this day plays out, as Manchester United and PSG are both competing for the 2 top spots to advance in Champions League, because RB Leipzig is right there. And tomorrow I'll get back to you with the update regarding these games. And then last but not least, it'll be the final game of Week 12 of the NFL season, as the Pittsburgh Steelers face off against the Baltimore Ravens today at 3:40 Eastern Standard Time on NBC. The Steelers are undefeated, and the Ravens at 6-4. They're trying to hold on to that playoff spot, as I think the Browns have overtaken them, and a lot of their players are out due to COVID and injuries. So I think the Steelers are going to take this one, but it's really interesting to see how this season will end for the Baltimore Ravens. But I don't think this game will be a pretty one for the Ravens and the Steelers. I'd be very flabbergasted if the Steelers ended up losing this game against the Baltimore Ravens. But of course, this is a division rivalry. Anything can happen. So of course that'll be a big game. And of course, with college basketball, Champions League soccer, and NFL going on today. It is Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020, out here in this quarantine. Once again, I'm James Sims. I want to thank you for listening to all 13 minutes of this piece, and I'll get back to you tomorrow regarding today's matchups and just previewing the next week of NFL football and the final week of Champions League, along with as well as letting you know what's going on with college basketball and looking out into those games today. Out of the ranked games, 17th ranked Texas will play 14th ranked UNC. 23rd ranked Ohio State will host Morehead State. First ranked Gonzaga will play against 11th ranked West Virginia on ESPN at 7 o'clock. 22nd ranked Florida State faces off against North Florida. 21st ranked Oregon faces off against Missouri. 5th ranked Illinois faces off against 2nd ranked Baylor in the Jimmy V Classic. And once again, with these games in mind, I'll get back to you with these tomorrow. Once again, thank you for listening to my piece. I hope all is well, and peace out.